to Yokosuka Naval Hospital, and I didn't get near the attention there. They had good doctors, but it was a huge ward. In the Army hospital, there were 4 of us in a room, and had 2 attendants and all kinds of Japanese girls that brought you water and took care of you, and it was really nice. Got over in the Navy hospital, I had 2 corpsmen for about 200 guys, and no trapeze and a soft mattress. I just couldn't move around. It was not good, but I got a really dynamite doctor. And at that time, cortisone was new. And he was a very forward-thinking doctor, and he started giving me cortisone shots. There's an infection that happens with burns, a pyrosinus infection. And this cortisone was keeping it down, and it was so revolutionary, other doctors were coming around to take a look at, when they were dressing me, take a look, and the doctor was showing them on. Then about after 2 weeks of that treatment, he decided it was time to graft me. And luckily, I had some skin on the back of my one leg. When I knew this mortar was, since the mortar was coming in, I started to flee. I got this leg up enough that it didn't get phosphorus on the back of it. And they were able to take donor skin from the back of that leg, and they cut it all up in what they call postage stamp grafts. Put that all over my back and my other leg and my lower leg. And then they put me in a cast. The doctor was quite anxious to see how it was going to progress, having given me the cortisone and this treatment and everything. But the Haven, the hospital ship, the U.S. Haven, was coming back to the States. He said, well, I'm going to put you on the Haven, send you home, and they'll unwrap you later. Well, great, going home was wonderful. So I got on the Haven, and lo and behold, in the next bunk to me was my buddy that I'd gotten burned with. I hadn't seen him since we'd been wounded.
Wow.
So we had a little reunion, and then I met my doctor that was going to be my doctor on the ship. We still hadn't left port. This was the afternoon I got there. He was anxious to see what I had. I don't know, maybe he wasn't going to let me go if it was wrong or something. I don't know, but he started stripping that off, this gauze that had been growing to me for 10 days. Without any anesthetic, he just started ripping it off. And wow, I was biting my toe and cheering, hurting, and there was a lot of it. It was from way up on my shoulder blades, clear down to my heels. And so he kept going, and he took a little pause, and my buddy looked over and said, I think he's got it almost. I relaxed. There was one more piece. I called that guy every name in the book. I told him he was a sadist. I lost him. But anyway, it turned out he was a very progressive doctor as well. He, instead of putting Vaseline gauze on there, he bought parachute silk out of his own pocket and made dressings from it. And then to remove it, we went into the whirlpool baths. Do you have a picture of the whirlpool?
I have, where, right here. This is your,
Oh,
maybe.
maybe under. That's it.
All right.
Yeah. This picture is aboard the hospital ship. No, you didn't show it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are whirlpool baths, hot salt water, and it just soaked the dressings right off, so there's no pulling, no nothing.
This is on the ship?
This is on a hospital ship, the U.S.
Wow,
Haven.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a painless procedure. It was really nice after what we've been through. Just floated the dressings off. And we got back right around Thanksgiving. Came under the Golden Gate Bridge. It's the first time I'd been on my feet since September 14th. And the Golden Gate was a glorious sight.
I sure was.
Then I had several months of convalescence, and it was clear I wasn't going to be able to return to active duty, so I got retired. I was a corporal at the time I was wounded. When I first went in the Corps, they gave us a series of tests, and they based promotions on these tests. And so while I was hospitalized, I got promoted to sergeant and to staff sergeant. And then I made staff sergeant in 17 months, and I got retired in 19 months. So I had a short but glorious career. Following that, yes.
Why did you retire?
Why?
Yes.
Because I wasn't fit for duty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had all these scars. I had third-degree burns that had lost flexibility, had tendons that were involved, and the scars were real stiff, couldn't bend well. It took about 4 years to get them limbered up. I used lanolin on the scars, and it made them nice and soft and supple, and then worked at getting my flexibility back.
What you may not realize is that you can choose to retire after 20 years, but if you have a medical situation, I mean, hard to be a Purple Heart recipient and stay in the military, although now, I guess they do.
Oh, they do.
And some people do.
They teach you.
It depends on how severe your injury was. But especially in Marines, you're not gonna sit at a desk with your back messed up. When you're flying jets, I have friends that eject from a plane and your back is compressed, you can't fly jets, you're gonna be medically retired, is what it's called. So that's what he's confused, is, you know, you choose to retire, you can be medically retired, and then he gets the benefits just like everybody else, obviously, but, so 19 months you were actually in until you were medically retired.
Correct. Well, and I couldn't go back to the job I had before. I was working in the steel mill just prior to entering the Marine Corps. So they gave me a job printing blueprints, and I studied and became a draftsman. And I worked at that for 4 years. And then I got the opportunity to go in the Los Angeles City Fire Department. I was recovered in 4 years and could move around pretty good. So then I had a 25-year career on the Los Angeles City Fire Department. I was a firefighter for about 6 years, and then I was an engineer. I got to drive fire engines for another 6 years, and then I was a captain for the remainder of my 25 years. And LA City was really quite an experience. And it's a quasi-military thing, so some of the military training came in kind of handy there. And we also probably saw as much gunfire as we did in Korea. They went to the Watts riots, the first Watts riots. That was, I don't know if you've ever heard of them or familiar with them.
Explain it to them, they may not understand that.
You know, in 1963, there was an incident that caused blacks to riot in Watts, and they just started looting and burning and shooting, and it went on for about 3 days. They called in the National Guard and kind of thought they were getting control, but what they did was they went into the center of the fighting and drove everybody out, and that spread it over a much wider area. If they'd cordoned them off, it would have been contained, but they spread it and went citywide for several days.
There's some pictures I got there of it.
Is this a Rodney King riots?
Beg pardon?
Rodney King riots?
This is way before, 1963,
Yeah.
Kennedy's president. A lot of, when we started, it was really before the Civil Rights Act, so there was lots of civil unrest and demonstrations, and this was basically in LA.
Yep.
Very famous.
What is this riot called, sir? Is there a specific name?
Watts. It's the Watts is an area of town. W-A-T-T-S.
Yeah, W-A-T-T-S, right.
But you can see, and this was, believe it or not incredibly unusual for those days.
No, it
A
happened.
lot of cities had riots like that.
It happened around the nation.
That happened. It's really sad, but that was during the Vietnam War, so the college kids, your age, were protesting the Vietnam War, and of course the minorities were worried about the civil rights, and Martin Luther King was coming up. But I mean, this was not unusual. They had a lot of riots going on in a lot of cities back then.
It was bad enough. I carried a shotgun on my fire engine just in case.
War zone. I mean, you look at a war zone.
Yeah, this is right down in the Central Avenue right there. My fire station was just a little ways up from this.
Okay, we have about 8 minutes.
Very well. How about 8 minutes of questions? Or 8 minutes of critiquing? Yes.
To this day, sir, do your wounds give you pause or cause you pain?
I have to be a little careful in the sun, and I have to be careful of boots so they don't chafe on the areas around my ankles. They're the most sensitive.
Where you got your skin grafted?
Mhm.
Where you got burned?
Yeah. Anybody else curious about it? Yes.
What kind of education did you get before you went into the Marines?
Just high school. I graduated from high school. I was evidently smart enough because in
Well, again, they don't understand, when the word draft means, the day you turn 18, you go into the military. And that happened all through Vietnam, all through Korea, all through World War II.
well, I made it to 20.
Okay, if you're lucky to have some particular little draft delays because of college, you can, but in general, all you guys go in the military at 18.
I mentioned the problems I had being left-handed, dyslexic, attention deficit disorder, hyperactive. I kind of had that under control, but there was another disability I had that I just found out about a month ago. Being the youngest in your class puts you at a disadvantage education-wise. And I started school 2 months before I was 5, so all the way through, my older classmates were about 8 months ahead of me. And the study they did, it affects you all the way even up to college age, and you're less apt to go to college if you're the youngest in your class. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I really didn't have much interest in college until I needed some education. And then I went to junior college to be a draftsman. And when I got on the fire department, I went to LA City College and got an AA in fire science. And
That's really amazing. You had these severe injuries, you still have quite an active.
4 years later,
I'm just saying, that's
Yeah.
really amazing,
Oh, yeah.
and that's a blessing, because a
Yeah.
lot of the,
absolutely.
you know, Purple Heart recipients, your lifestyle has changed severely.
Right,
And
permanently.
it took you 4 years to recover to do that. I mean, think about a more fit person than a fireman, I mean,
Yep.
that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, there was something I did want to mention that in school, and when I was probably about 10 years old, we had people come back that had been students there. I remember a naval officer came and gave us advice. And his advice was, read as much and as well as you can, and learn everything you can about mathematics. That's going to stand you in good stead. Well, that's still good advice, but there's a whole lot more. And I know in your class, you've covered some of it. I've seen your section on nutrition. That's really important. But there's other stuff that's kind of light now that you want to guard against if you want to get to be a good old person. I'm 83. I'm doing reasonably well. I'd like to do maybe another 10, 15, 20 years, something like that, if it's possible. But you've got to be thinking ahead a little bit, and what's really come to light lately is protecting your head. Have you covered that at all, about brain damage and concussion?
No, not in this class in particular, because
No.
they're not doing it, but you're right, we have emphasis on football, basketball, soccer, you
Good.
know.
Good, yeah, just repeated stress to your head can really mess with your brain. And a big one is bad. I had several friends that had personality changes due to an auto accident. One got hit in the head with a shot put. Just one instance changed them. But repeated instances will not do you any good. You've got to protect your eyesight, your lungs, your joints. It's real tempting to go out and do super strongman things. It'll catch up with you later. I knew a commander in the Navy SEALs, came on the fire department. He was in his 40s at that time. And he was a rugged individual, and he would put probably 40 pounds of rocks in his pack and climb the cliffs out at Point Fermin Park. Do that repeatedly, and he'd ride his surfboard, his paddleboard, in stormy, cold, ice-cold weather. At the age 65, he had to have both hips replaced, and one of them went wrong, and it messed him up internally, and he was all done before he was 68. And then on the fire department, we used to take pride in doing strongman things. We'd take a 3-man ladder and try to do it with 1 man. Or they've got these batteries, these heavy appliances that they put 3 hoses into, and it shoots a big stream. They're on a wooden platform, quite heavy. Well, it's considered a real feat to pick that up, put it on your shoulder, and walk around the engine house with it. You're killing your back when you're doing that kind of thing. You're making it stronger, but it defeats its purpose because it makes your bones so thick. I eventually had to have an operation on my back because it caused my spine to narrow. And it was from doing these things that really didn't need to be done. It just did them because we could, didn't think about the consequences. So if you start thinking about them now, you can have a really fine time. I spent the first quarter of my life off the fire department, the second quarter on the fire department. The third quarter has been really delightful. Got a motorhome, traveled all the 50 states for 4 years. Just really enjoyed myself. And now I'm in the fourth quarter and I'm playing for overtime.
All right, give him a round of applause for this. Anyone has questions?
What are you doing right now, sir?
Beg your pardon?
What are you doing right now?
I'm involved in several veterans organizations. The Marine Corps League, I hold an office there, and in the Korean War Veterans, I hold office there. And I'm about to join the Military Order of the Purple Heart. I didn't have time for it before. I think we're going to do that now.
Great, that'd be a great way. We sure hope you can come back sometime. This
I'd
is
like to
great.
do that.
Cadet Johnson, why don't you dismiss the class, and we will.
We get to see my money and I get that tax thing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
you better believe it is. Turn it off, Joseph.